Welcome back to BNG Hockey, where it's always black and gold. We're a little more than a week away from the NHL's trade deadline day, so I figured we'd do another round of Boston Bruins trade rumors. Let's get started. Let's start things off here with the biggest name the Bruins have recently been linked to, and that's Flyers captain Claude Giroux. Now, I'll admit this is probably the most far-fetched of the names I'm about to tell you in this video, but it does sound like the Bruins are at least making a call to the Flyers and doing their due diligence on this player. He would likely just be a rental for them because he is a free agent at the end of this season, and he's going to get paid, whether that's back with the Flyers or with another team. It could be with the Bruins. We know that they need a long-term center depth, but he's getting up there in age as well, so he wouldn't really help you bridge the gap between Bergeron and our next future number one center. So this would just be a powerhouse rental to add with Taylor Hall and David Pastrnak, give you ridiculous center depth of Bergeron, Giroux, and Coyle, and help you go on a deep playoff run. Now, I did want to mention that Claude Giroux has also played quite a bit of wing in his past few seasons and a lot less of center. He's still fully capable of playing the center position, but I don't know if he's the best all-around centerman that you could get. Maybe at this year's trade deadline that's true, but his talent, his abilities, his physicality, and his attitude is very Bruins, and I think he would be a perfect fit with Taylor Hall and David Pastrnak and on that top power play unit. And if you go on to win a Stanley Cup and you have to give up a lot for this player, but he's the one piece that they needed, I think it would be worth it for a team that's looking to win now. But it's the age-old problem that the Bruins don't have the best prospects to give up, and there's going to be a lot of good teams with a lot of good packages to offer up for this player's services. We're at least starting with Jack Studnicka, probably one of your younger defensemen like a Jakob Chychrun who's looked good recently, maybe an Urho Vaakanainen. I would hope they wouldn't give up Fabian Lysell for a rental, but I'm sure the Flyers would at least ask. You're definitely throwing in a first-round pick and probably a roster player like Jake DeBrusk. And that's a hefty package for a guy who's just a rental. But that being said, he's by far the most talented player that's rumored to be available at this year's trade deadline, so it's good to see that the Bruins are at least making the call and looking to get him on this team so they can go on a run. With the Bruins showing interest in Claude Giroux, that's showing that they're really trying to swing for the fences here and go on one last run with this current group. But I do want them to still think about the future, and I think they realize that they do have a solid young core with guys like McAvoy, Pastrnak, and Swayman, so the future is not all lost when they move on from guys like Bergeron and Marchand. So you do have to keep that in mind, especially if you're going to be trading a bunch of other prospects to get a player at this year's trade deadline. So there is a guy who would help you both now and in the future, and it's somebody that I know a lot of Bruins fans have been interested in for a long time. And that's defenseman Jakob Chychrun of the Arizona Coyotes. In 46 games, he has 7 goals, 14 assists for a total of 21 points. He's a 6'2" left-shot defenseman. He's only 23 years old, and the best part is, after this season, he's signed for 3 more years at a ridiculously cheap cap hit of $4.6 million. And I say that's cheap because he is definitely worth a lot more than that. So you would have to pay him quite a bit more down the line, but you would get 3 more years of this player playing like he is now in his prime at $4.6 million. And that is worth a giant package in my opinion. I would much rather see the Bruins throw all their draft picks, some roster players, and some prospects at a trade like this than I would for a rental like Claude Giroux. But that's just me. I also think the Bruins' biggest need is on defense. The team has really started to find their scoring, with guys like Erik Haula stepping up as the second-line center, Coyle, Smith, and Frederick giving you some good depth scoring as a new third line. I would still like to see them add a forward, and they probably still would, but I do think their biggest need is on defense. If you lose Charlie McAvoy, pretty much everybody else has had a very mediocre season. Even a guy like Carlo and Grzelcyk, they haven't been fantastic. And Riley, Forbort, Clifton, those are just typical 6 defenseman kind of guys. So they really need an upgrade, and getting an absolute stud like Chychrun on the back end would not only help you this season, but for many years to come. And he is on a fantastic deal, which means you're going to have to give up a lot. And if I'm the Bruins, I'm pretty much giving up anything besides Fabian Lysell. Even Mason Lohrei, who's really stepped it up this season, and I know a lot of Bruins fans are excited about him, and he is younger than Chychrun, but at only 23 years old, it's not like you'd be missing out on that many seasons, and luckily you're trading him to the Coyotes, so it's a lot more likely that that prospect won't come back to bite the Bruins, because that team's going to be bad for a long time. and you have to give to get in this league. So giving up a guy like Lohrei, a first-round pick, couple of other prospects, Jake DeBrusk, I'd do that deal every day of the week. I'd even trade some of the guys they have in their current roster, like Grzelcyk or Riley, maybe even a young guy like Jakob Chychrun, because you'd be placing him in the same exact spot, and he'd be a huge upgrade. As I said, I think one of the Bruins' biggest needs is on defense, and you don't necessarily have to trade for a guy like Chychrun to upgrade that defense, because that's how mediocre some of the guys have been for the Bruins this season. And it's no surprise that they're going after a player that you might not have even heard of, because he's actually a better fit than you might think, and that's defenseman Jacob Middleton. In 40 games with the San Jose Sharks, he has 3 goals, 6 assists for a total of 9 points. But he's known for his defensive play. He's very good on the penalty kill, one of the biggest reasons that San Jose has a good penalty kill, even though they're not the best team this season. He's 6'3", throws his weight around, isn't afraid to fight. He's a left shot, which the Bruins desperately need, and he's only 26 years old, and he'll be an RFA after this season. And up until this year, he's pretty much done nothing at the NHL level, so if he was a good fit, you'd likely be able to get him on a team-friendly deal for a few more seasons after this. So all those things added up definitely make him an attractive option for the Bruins, and he would probably cost them nothing more than like a third-round pick, or maybe a C-level prospect in a one-for-one deal. But everybody's looking for depth defensemen heading into the playoffs, so there might be a little bit of a bidding war, and I hope the Bruins don't get too crazy with this, but it does sound like this player is a pretty good fit, even though he's not an attractive name like Claude Giroux or Jakob Chychrun. This next player is somebody I've liked for quite some time, and somebody who I was excited to see the Bruins linked to in recent rumors, and that's forward Andrew Copp of the Winnipeg Jets. In 53 games this season, he has 13 goals, 19 assists for a total of 32 points. Now this player has had kind of an up and down career with the Winnipeg Jets. Depending who his line mates are and depending on who his coach is, he has a bigger or smaller role night to night. I think his perfect placement on the Bruins would be alongside Charlie Coyle and Craig Smith, and then you move Trent Frederic back down to the fourth line, which is probably his best spot if you're going to be a good playoff team. Now, Andrew Copp can play both center and wing. He could be your second line center, but like I said, I kind of like Haula there, and I don't love having a guy who's not a natural centerman playing that position in such a big role with guys like Taylor Hall and David Pastrnak. But he does have experience playing center, and it's not too hard playing with those guys, as we've seen with a guy like Erik Haula, but I just think that's a better fit as a line, and I'd much rather see the Bruins go with 3 good lines than load it up with 2 good lines. And Andrew Copp is only 27 years old, but he will be a UFA at the end of this season. He's currently making $3.6 million, so he'd probably get a little bit more of a raise than that, so I'm not sure he'd be a long-term fit with the Bruins, but as a rental at the end of this season, he would definitely be a good player who brings some versatility because he can play different positions, brings some size at 6'1", and overall a guy I wouldn't mind the Bruins going after, trading a prospect or maybe a second-round pick for in a deadline deal. And what would a Bruins trade rumor be without them being interested in a player from Massachusetts? Because they're really trying to collect them all here with this franchise, and this is a player the Bruins have been interested in for quite some time, going back to his time with the Coyotes, and that's forward Conor Garland, who's currently playing for the Vancouver Canucks. In 54 games this season, he has 14 goals, 17 assists for a total of 31 points. This player's kind of had an up and down season, but so have the Canucks as a whole, and I think this is a player who would be a perfect fit for the Bruins. Unfortunately, he is a bit on the smaller side, but he is similar to Brad Marchand in the fact that he plays a lot bigger than he actually is. He's not afraid to get into the corners, battle, bring a little snarl and some attitude. And I think he would be a perfect fit on the top line in Jake DeBrusk's spot, playing alongside Bergeron and Marchand. And he's a better fit because he's actually a right shot. He's only 26 years old, so this is a player, once again, who could help you now and in the future. And the best part, he's signed for 4 more seasons after this one at a very reasonable cap hit of $4.95 million. I still think this player is getting better and better with each season, and if you put him alongside some elite players and getting some power play time, I think the goals will start going in, and he will definitely be worth a significant package at this year's trade deadline. For Garland, I think it would be the classic first-round pick and a prospect. Not your best prospect, just a prospect. I think a first-round pick and a guy like Oskar Steen would probably get the deal done for the Canucks. You still get a young forward that they could put in their lineup, and they get a first-round pick and move on from a guy and get a little bit more cap space. Even though they just traded for this player, he was pretty much in trade rumors right away. But I don't think that means that he's a bad player. I just think that the Canucks are trying to shake it up. That does also mean that other players are available from the Canucks, guys like JT Miller and Brock Boeser, but I just don't think those guys will even end up getting moved. And a guy like Brock Boeser, the Bruins couldn't even afford after this season when he's an RFA. And as much as I would love to see those players here, I just don't think it's going to happen. So Garland is likely the most realistic target from the Canucks and one of the more realistic targets of all the players I've mentioned in my trade rumor videos for the Bruins this trade deadline. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go back and check out my last trade rumor video. Some of those guys the Bruins are still interested in to this day, so those are still very relevant. You get to hear my thoughts on that. Leave anybody down below that you think I missed or guys that you would hope the Bruins would be interested in, and let me know your thoughts on the players I talked about in this video and what you'd like to give up to acquire those players. Leave that down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big like, and if you haven't already, subscribe.